Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, it is the purpose of the Juma Khutba for the Khatib to speak about current critical issues and help to put them in perspective to chart a course going forward. Today, the most critical issue for us Muslims, just now as I speak in America, is the tragic series of murders in Albuquerque and the even more tragic haste with which this is sought to be labeled as Shia-Sunni sectarian conflict. It is essential that we understand what happened and be clear in our minds about what we need to do, because we are all answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows everything. We first had news about the murders in Albuquerque just as we were trying to deal with that shock of not one but 4 people being murdered. Someone who should have known better than to act on pure speculation of the worst kind decided to label it Shia-Sunni sectarian conflict. The truth is that as of today, which is August 19, 2022, this meaning that it's a Shia-Sunni conflict is pure speculation and nothing else. However, people react to speculation as if it were fact, and that leads to a whole new narrative about which the only real thing that can be said is that it is false. I am reminded of a conversation I had many years ago with an elderly friend of mine who was a Hindu priest about the rise of Hindu-Muslim conflict in India. Having grown up in India in a society which did not think about along sectarian lines, most of my friends were Hindus. And to make a long story short, as children, we literally lived in each other's homes. I've written about these times in my book, which is called From India to the Indies, for this very reason, that those times need to be remembered. I asked this friend of mine why suddenly today we have Hindu-Muslim conflict. He answered very simply. He said, in the old days, if 2 boys fought in a playground, they would say Ram and Rahim fought in the playground. Today, they say a Muslim attacked a Hindu, or vice versa, a Hindu attacked a Muslim. He said that's the difference. And that is the reason for the conflict. Not what happened, but how it was interpreted and projected based on hearsay and speculation. And probably, I don't hesitate to say, also mischievous intent. A sectarian conflict was literally created where it did not exist. I believe this is a real danger in this case also. There is no Shia-Sunni conflict in America. Let me make this very clear. But irresponsible statements and wide speculation, especially by so-called leaders, can create a conflict where none exists. I wish this were something benign, but it isn't. It is potentially dangerous and must be stopped in its tracks before it does real damage. I call on the leaders of national Muslim organizations to take a stand to ensure that we stay with the facts and don't jump to conclusions and label things when there is no fact and there is no evidence to support that label. First, the facts. What do we know? The first thing we know is that one man allegedly killed 4 men. I say allegedly because to make a conclusive statement, it has to go before a court of law. Now, this is what the police chief of Albuquerque, who is investigating the crime, has to say about it, and I applaud his maturity because the case is still being investigated. The Albuquerque police chief, Harold Medina, is quoted in the article, which I have given you the link in the text, as Medina told reporters Tuesday the department did not want to label the shootings a hate crime or attribute the actions to a serial killer because, listen to the words, it would have been irresponsible for us as a police department to say that and further drive fear into a community that was already in fear. And then he says, we still do not have any indication that either of these topics or labels would have been appropriate, Medina said. I wonder what those who are calling it a Shia-Sunni conflict know that the police who are investigating the crime don't know. If they have information, not speculation, real evidence, they should share it with the police. The police say that it would have been irresponsible for them to give the crime labels. I applaud and highly appreciate their dedication to facts and their reticence in speculation. I wish our so-called Muslim leaders had displayed the same level of maturity and followed what the Quran says so clearly and remained silent until the facts became clear. The Quran al-Karim warns us and says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqum binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bijahalatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. Allah says, which means, O you who believe, if a rebellious evil person comes to you with a news, verify it lest you harm people in ignorance, and afterwards you become regretful about what you have done. Adi bin Hatim radiallahu anhu reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the greatest propensity for good or evil in a man lies between his two lips, that means his tongue. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever restrains his tongue, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover his faults. Whoever controls his anger, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect him from punishment. Whoever apologizes to Allah, seeks forgiveness, He, Jalla Jalaluhu, the glorious and magnificent, will accept his apology and forgive him. It is incumbent on us to guard our tongues and ensure that we only speak the truth after verifying it. Foot-in-mouth disease is very common and very harmful. Rasulullah ﷺ told us that if a man came complaining about another man that he had attacked him, that he had been attacked by that other man, and that this Alhamdulillah. Rasulullah ﷺ told us that if a man came complaining that another man had attacked him and blinded him in one eye, and we could see that indeed he had been blinded, we should still not conclude that this man was or had been the victim until we check the situation of the other man. Rasulullah ﷺ said it is possible that the one claiming to be a victim had started the fight and he had attacked the other person first and blinded him in both eyes. To speak without verifying facts is not from Islam. And apart from being highly inadvisable, it is also very dangerous. Finally, I want to remind myself and you about the hadith. Jarir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu reported that some desert Arabs who were clad in tatters, literally clothes were in tatters, they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He saw their sad plight and great need. He exhorted the people to give charity, but they showed some reluctance until signs of anger could be seen on the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then a person from the Ansar came with a purse containing silver, containing some coins. Then came another one and another one and another one, until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face started radiating happiness. Thereupon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who introduces a good practice and someone follows him, he, the originator, will be given the reward of the one who followed him without reducing the reward of the follower in the least. And he who introduces some evil practice and someone follows him, he, the originator, will be given the punishment of the one who followed him without reducing the punishment of the follower in the least. Let us guard our tongues and not speak without evidence. The second thing we know is that the murderer has a history of domestic violence, problems of mental health, and apparently an addiction to violence. It also seems that he had some personal issues with at least one of the people who he murdered. His religion has nothing to do with his actions. His religion, that is Islam, does not preach murder. But as is obvious from his actions, he doesn't care about what his religion allows or does not allow. As far as we know, this man, to quote an article, I've given you the reference of a New York Times article, and the article says, coming from a culture, which is, he's talking about, this man is an Afghan, he's talking about Afghanistan. He says, coming from a culture where women largely stayed at home, he grew enraged with his wife as she was learning how to drive, grabbing her hair and kicking her out of the car. According to one of several reports of domestic violence, the police were called to investigate. A security camera showed him slashing the tires of another woman's car outside Albuquerque's largest mosque, and he was banned from coming to their place of worship. This is the behavior of a highly erratic man who has no control on his anger, and his victim in this case was his own wife, who presumably is not Shia. To hold him up as if he represents Sunni Muslims and to call his murderous actions a Shia-Sunni conflict is to insult all Sunni Muslims. All Sunni Muslims in America. I don't think we deserve this. I believe that those who were so quick to speak without facts and speculate and label must admit their highly irresponsible speech and actions and seek forgiveness. And that all those who allowed themselves to be fooled must regret their foolishness and wait for the police to find the evidence of what really happened and why before jumping to conclusions. As they say, don't assume. If you do, you make an ass of you and me. ASSUME. National Muslim organizations must take a clear stand on this and hold these people accountable. This is not something that can be or should be ignored. I say this with great emphasis because while there is no Shia-Sunni conflict as we speak, it is entirely possible that if these so-called leaders make their speeches claiming that there is a conflict, their followers may well make their words come true, and we all will suffer the consequences. If there is something that must be nipped in the bud, this is it. The third thing that we know of the two men who were killed most recently, the last of the killings, one was a Shia and one was a Sunni. And the janazas of both were conducted in the Sunni masjid in Albuquerque, and both were buried in the Muslim cemetery side by side. Now that doesn't look like a Shia-Sunni conflict to me at all. On the contrary, I would quote this as evidence to the contrary that there is no Shia-Sunni conflict in America. The fact is that for whatever reason, it is one of the beautiful things in America that people come here from conflict-full situations and places. But in America, they live as friends. Whatever people may feel in their hearts, in public, they remain friends and they live in harmony. Long may this remain. If I take all the historical evidence of Shia Sunni Muslims living in America, all I can find is evidence of not just peaceful coexistence, but of friendships, of collaboration, of doing business together, of worshipping together, and of being buried in the same cemetery. In our masjid, in the ISWM, as well as in Hampshire Mosque, we have several Shia brothers and sisters who worship with us regularly, and they come to the Juma and they participate in all our activities, and we are best friends. In all America, I can't find a single instance of any Sunni saying that the Shia should be hated or killed, nor of any Shia saying from a public platform that Sunnis should be hated or they should be killed. I can't find a single instance of any Imam, Shia or Sunni, giving a sermon, preaching hatred for the other and promoting murder. Calling what happened in Albuquerque a Shia-Sunni conflict is, in my opinion, totally unsubstantiated, totally uncalled for, totally unjustified, and highly dangerous. Think about this. How many times have we heard our Imams mentioning Islam's position on the sanctity of human life, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin aw fasadin fil ardi فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if anyone killed a person, not in retaliation or murder, and or spread of mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the life or lives of all mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said person, not Muslim. Islam does not differentiate even between Muslim and non-Muslim, let alone between different denominations of Muslims with respect to the sanctity of human life. All human life is sacred in Islam, and nobody has the right to kill anyone. The reference in the ayah about retaliation for murder refers to someone who has been accused of murder and then, after due process in law, is sentenced to capital punishment by the judge. Even in retaliation of murder, barring self-defense, which is permitted, a person doesn't have the right to kill another person because they saw them murdering someone else. They must either call the police or they must arrest the person and hand him over to the police, whose job it is to investigate the crime, present the evidence in court, upon which a judge will pass sentence. Vigilante action is not permitted in Islam. Every human being is protected by Islamic law. As for anyone who knowingly kills a Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed him. وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمُ خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَعَنَهُ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُ عَذَابًا عَظِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah An-Nisa, whoever kills a believer intentionally, his recompense is Jahannam, to abide therein, and the wrath and the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are upon him, and a great punishment is prepared for him. What we have seen in Albuquerque are the evil actions of one man based on whatever sick ideas motivated him. To interpret it as anything bigger than that is to speak without evidence, without knowledge, and to open the doors to great evil. As I said before, those who claim that this is a Shia-Sunni conflict and have evidence, if they have evidence, let them produce it before the police who are investigating the case, instead of making false allegations and generalizations. Having said all the above, we all mourn the loss of life and pray for the families who have been bereaved. We stand together to condemn all violence everywhere, no matter who does it and for whatever reason. Violence doesn't solve problems, violence creates problems. Violence is the result of hatred. All hatred is fire, all fire burns, and the result is always ash. As Muslims, we stand with all those who are fighting to protect human life everywhere. Finally, this is also a call to all of us to consciously speak the language of togetherness and harmony. Though we have no cause to doubt, there are always those who like to create conflict. They speak the language of extremism and division. Let us beware of them and never allow such ideas to take root even fleetingly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to hold together to His rope. Allah said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ عَدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and hold fast all of you together to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which is the Quran, and be not divided amongst yourselves. And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor on you, for you were enemies of one another, but He joined your hearts together so that by His grace you became brethren in Islam. And you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and He saved you from it. Thus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes His ayat, His signs, His revelation clear to you that you may be guided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prohibit us from having a difference of opinion. He did not say, La takhtalifu. He said, do not form divisions. La tafarraqu. There is ample room in Islam for differences of opinion and for debating about them and discussing and dialoguing to understand one another better. What Allah prohibited is the creation of divisions among ourselves. I remind myself and you that it is possible to have a different opinion about something, yet be the best of friends, working together on a million other matters on which we do not differ. Some people may think that this is not possible in matters of religion, but let me remind you that less than a century ago, blood flowed in the streets of Europe in Catholic-Protestant conflicts. But today, even the idea seems laughable and totally impossible. Though the Shia-Sunni conflict does not exist in America, I will not pretend that it does not exist. It does, and very tragically and viciously so, in many other parts of the world. I submit that it is totally unnecessary, except for those politicians who use it to promote their negative and haram agenda. Let us ensure that we do not allow that to gain a foothold in this country, and that we continue to remain peaceful. Let us not fan rumors about non-existent threats, and let us not allow the seeds of sectarian conflicts to germinate. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار آمين يا رب العالمين وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.